What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm super excited for today's video because I am going to be showing you my top glute building exercises. These are some of my favorites and I hope that you learned something today. Let's get started. First up, we have sumo deads. This is one of my favorite compound lifts. So there's a few key things to note with the sumo deads. It is a really technical exercise, so I do recommend getting a trainer to help you with your form if you are unsure of how to do this, but I'll try and talk you through it. So as you can see here, I've got my feet in a wider stance. I've got my toes pointing out towards the edge of the weight plate. I'm actually using bigger plates so that I can have the bar higher off the ground for the sumo dead as opposed to just a small barbell with smaller plate sizes. So this is perfect for me. You can try and use bumper plates if your gym has them as well. So I'm going to lower myself down to the bar. My knees are tracking over my feet as I am performing the movement. You can place your hands either one above and one below or both over. I personally prefer to have both hands over the bar, and of course if the weight is too heavy for you, you can use some form of wrist straps. But anyway, as I grab the bar, I'm going to hold my core nice and tight, take a deep breath in, I'm going to squeeze my lats down and I'm going to pull the bar up, squeezing my glutes at the top, but not hyperextending and pushing my hips too far forward, and also not locking out my knees. So once I've made it to the top, I'm going to lower the weight back down, pushing my hips back, and I'm really trying to target my glutes and my hamstrings with this exercise. So as you can see, I come up, I slowly lower the weight back down, I reset, and I go again. Split squats. I'm sure when I say that, a lot of you are thinking, no, but I understand. I have a love-hate relationship with them too, but I absolutely love incorporating them into my lower body days because I truly believe that they have helped to develop my legs. So you're gonna feel it in your quads, you're gonna feel it in your glutes, but it is such a great glute stretch. What I recommend doing is actually starting with body weight. This is just to make sure that you've got your balance all right, you can get the stance set up. So you're gonna take a big stride forward, put your back foot on the bench or a box, whichever floats your boat, and then you're going to slowly come down, keeping an upright posture, stretching that glute at the very bottom, and then driving through your heel to come back up before you lower again. So here you could do a body weight 10 on the left hand side and then swap to the other side and do another 10. Get nice and warm, get used to going nice and deep to stretch that glute and come back up. These are killer and they are hard, so don't feel bad if you cannot add weight to these just yet. Now when it does come to adding in weight, what you can do is use a barbell or use dumbbells. I personally like to use dumbbells because I feel like it causes me to hold my core nice and tight, and it just helps me from a balance perspective. I find it quite hard to add on a barbell weight when doing this, especially when you've got to put your foot back up on the back of a bench. So take a nice step out, hold dumbbells in each hand, and then come down, sit into that glute stretch before driving through your heel and coming back up to the top, making sure that you keep your feet pointing forward and your knees nice and straight in line with your foot. Ideally, this kind of exercise I wouldn't want to do high reps in unless it was body weight, so I would like to keep it at about a 6 to 10 rep range per leg. Ideally, I think about 8 reps per side is great with a heavier weight. Romanian deadlifts, but this one here, you can see that I've got a resistance band and I'm going to be using that placed around my hip bones. I absolutely love this exercise for really getting that glute squeeze at the top. So what I'm going to do is place it around my hip bones. I will walk towards the weight and I will place both hands over again. You can switch up the grip, whichever suits you. And then I'm going to slowly lower the bar down along my upper thigh and down my shins. So I'm lowering it down as low as I can whilst keeping my back nice and flat. We do not want to be arching our backs, so we don't want to get lower back pain. If you are finding that your lower back is trying to take over with an exercise like this, I do recommend lowering the weight so that you don't injure yourself. And of course, make sure that you have warmed up effectively before going into an exercise such as this. So as I lower the bar down, I'm going to come back up and I'm going to squeeze my glutes against the resistance band at the top without locking my knees. So once again, I'll lower it down. I'm hinging at the hips, pushing my glutes back, and then pulling the bar back up and squeezing my glutes at the top. In terms of my feet position, I'm keeping my feet at shoulder width apart and they are pointing forward for this exercise. For those of you that are a little bit shorter and you find that you could stretch a little bit lower but the weight is getting in the way, what you can do is actually stand on a box or stand on some weight plates just to add to the range of motion. This also applies for those of you that are super flexible. If you're not quite feeling it in your hamstrings, you can add this extended height so that you can really get that stretch in your hamstrings. For an exercise like this, I'd be looking at around 8 to 10 rep range. Booty banded glute bridge. So here you can see that I'm actually using a barbell that has smaller plates. The reason for this is it allows me to get a full range of motion right down and right back up. So with using kind of bigger plates, it wouldn't allow me to go right down to the bottom and really get the maximal range of movement for my glutes. So I'm placing a booty band just above my knees, and I'm going to be placing my toes pointing slightly outwards again, really trying to target the glutes, driving through my heels, pushing my knees out against the booty band, coming up at the top, squeezing my glutes without hyperextending and pushing too far up, and then lowering back down. But as I lower down, you'll see that I'm not actually resting on the mat as I come down. I'm just making this kind of a pumper exercise, which I come up to the top and I come down, keeping the tension and the resistance on the whole time. And I'm just going to do these reps at kind of a 1-0-1-0 tempo. So up, down, no kind of slow tempo on these ones here. It's again an accessory exercise that I would use on a lower body glute day. And then again, keeping my chin tucked slightly down, not looking up at the ceiling, but more looking towards the tops of my knees. Abductions. I absolutely love abduction machines, but here in New Zealand, there are not many gyms that actually have them. So of course, I have to get creative and substitute. A substitution I often use are banded abductions. So I use my Fit Within Julie booty bands, and I'm going to be doing a finisher with this. So this is what I'll usually put at the end of a glute workout, or I'll kind of use it as a superset to another exercise. So I'll do 20 reps leaning forward, I'll do 20 reps upright, and then I'll do 20 reps with a slight lean backwards. So this kind of exercise is really helping to shape the glutes in terms of giving it that rounder, fuller shape. In terms of feet position, so I'm keeping my feet kind of about shoulder width apart as I'm performing these, and I rock onto the edge of my foot as I seat up and then seat backwards. Now, in terms of substitutions for this, there are a few different things you could do. A common substitution I really like to use is a cable abduction. So all I'm going to do is use a handle. Some gyms actually have ankle cuffs, and that's a-okay to use, or if you have your own, use them. But I'm just going to use a simple gym handle to show you how you would do this if you weren't able to use an ankle cuff. So I'll put my foot through, and then all I'm going to do is abduct away with kind of a light weight for an exercise like this, because I'll usually do it for about 10 to 15 reps. Low bar squats. So for those of you that have not checked out my how to squat video, please go and check that out. That kind of explains everything you need to know about the squats. I'm going to keep this nice and simple, but in short, a low bar squat really helps to target your glutes and your hamstrings, as opposed to a higher bar squat, which is more focused on your quads. This exercise can take a little bit of time to get used to, because it is quite different to the high bar squat in terms of how you are leaning forward, as well as how your wrists and your elbows are placed. But anyway, you'll see that I am taking a wider stance. I've got my toes pointed slightly out, and as I lower down, I'm holding my core nice and tight, and I'm stretching my glutes at the very bottom of the squat before powering up and getting to the top without hyperextending at the top and squeezing my glutes, because the glutes are actually at their greatest stretch at the bottom of the squat, not at the top. Cable kickbacks, another kind of accessory type exercise that you can use throughout your lower body days to really target the glute and help with that upper shelf that we all love. So what you're going to do again is use a handle much like the abductions on the cables, and you're just going to place your foot inside it. Again, if you have an ankle cuff, that is a-okay. There's a few different versions of a kickback, so it could be a straight leg one, but I personally really like to use a bent leg kickback. So all you're going to do is kick back your leg, keep your back nice and straight, hold your core tight, make sure that you're keeping your hips parallel to the ground without rocking too much. So we don't want to be jerking our lower backs to get that weight up. Don't pick a weight that is too heavy. Use a weight that you can control. If you are feeling this in your lower back, I do recommend lowering the weight and really focusing on your form, holding that core tight and not rocking side to side as you do the movement. Glute pull-throughs. How crazy do these exercises look? Anyway, I personally really like doing these. It took me a while to get the hang of it, but what you're going to do is grab a rope, attach it to a cable, and then you're going to grab the rope by the ends, lower yourself down, and pull the rope through your legs. So what you're going to make sure you're doing is keeping your arms nice and straight. You're not pulling the rope necessarily with your arms, they're just there to hold the rope. You're going to hinge back at the hips, push your glutes back, and pull the rope through, squeezing your glutes at the top. Toes can be pointing slightly outwards as you pull the rope through and you squeeze at the top. Slowly lower the weight back down and keep your neck in line with your spine. With all of these exercises, there is the common theme of making sure that your neck and spine posture is on point to avoid injury. If you feel a little bit insecure about an exercise like this, whether you're wearing shorts or just leggings, feel free to tie a jumper around your waist or even just do it in the gym when it's nice and quiet. Hip thrusts. Hip thrusts are something that are kind of new to my training within the last 2 years since competing. They are the go-to when it comes to building your glutes. So you might see a few videos online of people doing really heavy weights, and for me personally, I like to mix up the weights that I use for my lower body days. I also mix up the reps and sets. So for me, hip thrusts could be anything from a 5x5, 5 sets, 5 reps, to a 20 rep type glute burner. So the key things to note about the hip thrust are your foot position. I personally like to have quite a narrow stance with my toes pointing out to really target my glutes. And as I raise the bar up, I'm making sure to keep my chin tucked down and my eyes pointing forward. What we don't want is to be looking up towards the ceiling. Another little tip that I do recommend doing with hip thrusts is placing a booty band above your knees. So the reason for this is it will force us to be pushing our knees out against the booty band and to really target the glutes. So if you are letting your knees cave in, you may find that you're not actually targeting your glutes and feeling them as you do the exercise. So as you come up, make sure that you keep that chin tucked down, your eyes looking forward, and squeeze your glutes at the top without hyperextending. So I don't want you to be arching your back and pushing your glutes up ridiculously high. It's more of a tilt in your pelvis where you're squeezing the glutes and then coming back down. You'll see that I personally like to use a barbell pad. Not all gyms have these, so if not, feel free to wrap your jumper or a towel around the bar, because it is so important to protect your hip bones, because hip thrusts can be quite uncomfortable without this added cushioning. That wraps up my top 8 glute exercises. They are my all-time favorites. I hope that you learned something from today's video, and as always, if you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and smile.